Hey guys, welcome to Brains, Brawn, and BS, where we try to improve the lives of our listeners by connecting the dots between physical and financial wellness while discussing the shit that actually matters in life.
Hey guys, it is Luke. I'm joined by my co-host Scott, and today we're going to be discussing a couple different things. My topic is going to be kind of muscular strength and how that's important to everyday living in life. Scott, why don't you explain to these fine people kind of what you're going to be going over today and why it matters?
Yeah, so essentially when it comes to muscular strength, we're going to be relating that to personal finance and how that flows over to business finance. May get into a little bit of economics, but don't freak out, you guys. I'm going to keep it super simple because I needed it really simple when I started.
I can definitely understand and relate to that. I think when it comes to learning, and if you're just getting started on maybe a complicated, convoluted topic, high-level, conceptual-based knowledge is the best place to start. At least for me.
Educating yourself.
Yeah.
This is stuff, when you listen to this podcast, you guys are going to learn stuff that you will not learn in school. Now, school is fine for a lot of people, but if you're looking to be successful and to start a business, it's not the place you're going to learn it. You can learn about business, but what they do is teach you to be a high-paid employee. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, Luke. I could just be a complete jerk.
Yeah, you could just be ignorant. No, I'm just kidding.
I question that every day.
Yeah, as you should. Everyone should be thinking like that, right? But no. I mean, you're right in the sense. I think I view school as a tool, right? And you guys are gonna have to. I apologize. I'm sick, so you might hear some little sniffles and here and there.
God, you're screwing up the podcast, Luke.
Over my key. I'm trying not to infect all of our listeners, right? But anyway, so school, I don't view it maybe as pessimistically as you, Scott. I know you don't have any strong opinion either way, I think,
Correct,
but you made some good points in the sense that it does teach you to be if you do school properly, right, it should open up your eyes, but if you take the traditional path, it does teach you to kind of be more of at best, a high-paid employee, However, you can learn a lot in school. I'm not going to lie. If you take those years and you use it to your advantage, you can make it as a business owner. You can do your own thing, but it's just a stepping stone, if anything at all, and it's not mandatory. True. You're not going to learn. It's not the end-all, be-all, but you can use it as a powerful tool if you apply yourself properly to kind of jumpstart your career or your business or whatever. Right, it's not like I said, it's not the end all be all.
Right. And one thing I will say is that in a lot of colleges, if you guys are in school, look for different groups, different clubs that are interested in entrepreneurship, that pass around ideas. There's a few of those at the local college here in town. But those are great resources.
Definitely.
But
that's a good point.
Back to muscular strength, though. Luke, what you got?
Correct. So listen, guys, I'm just going to give you kind of like muscular strength isn't super complicated like cardio was on the last episode. I'm even going to give you the kind of the straight up and down on it. It is one of the 5 components of muscular fitness, right? You have cardiovascular fitness, muscular endurance, flexibility, body comp, and muscular strength, right? Muscular strength is simply the maximum amount of force you can produce on a object, right? You typically see muscular strength measured in a 1 repetition max test. Like if you've ever been to a gym, you probably heard some gym bro go, how much can you bench, right? And what they're actually saying is, what's your 1 repetition max? How strong are you? That is a measure of your muscular strength. It's a full out, all on effort involving multiple muscle groups acting simultaneously and exerting force on something like a barbell, a dumbbell, a machine. It's the most you can lift for 1 repetition, right? It's an all-out effort.
So this is for this is for any muscle group. We're talking like if I was doing legs or I was doing arms, whatever.
Yeah, legs, core, back, chest, or all of the above, right? When a real life example of muscular strength is you lifting a desk off the ground, just picking up a desk. You're using your full body, every muscle group, calves, quads, hamstrings, core, back, chest, arms. Everything is acting together at one point in time in a full-on effort, not to just it's not the act of continuously lifting and putting down the desk, right? Because if you did it more than once, it would turn into a muscular endurance exercise.
Got it.
And that's what you need to think about when you don't want to get it confused with muscular endurance, all right?
So when I'm like helping someone move, like my buddy Mark a while back, and I felt muscles in my body that I had never felt before that were hurting. Obviously, that's why, is because we're using different muscles when we're doing it.
Yeah, and it's usually if you're truly testing muscular strength in a lab setting, you are lifting as much as you possibly can. Right? So you're gonna be exhausted. It's extremely difficult. It's gonna take a lot of gas out of the system. It's not something, a 1 repetition max test or a heavy lift like that when you're moving furniture is not something you can do all day. You just can't.
Got it.
You know?
So if I'm going to be keeping track of it, let's say I'm interested in increasing my my max set and whatnot. What's a good way for me to measure it? Do I need to just go in and say, okay, cool, here's all the weight, let me pump it out and see how much I can do, or what do I do?
Yeah, no, that's a good question, Scott. So the best way, say if you wanted to, and correct me if I'm not understanding you properly, if you wanted to go into a fitness setting with the intention or goal of increasing your 1 repetition max or your muscular strength, right? You're going to measure that you're going to measure that and increase that a couple different ways. So my suggestion, and in my experience, I would say you're going to increase your muscular strength by lifting heavier weight in a gradual, safe, and acclimated manner in which you slowly kind of work your way up to a point where you are ready to do a 1 rep max test.
And this is all in like one setting, right? So if I, do a consistent workout for a couple of weeks, and I decide, okay, I'm going to see what my max is, you're saying that I'm going to do gradual, like start with the bar, go up to, let's say my max last time was like 130 because I'm a weak SOB. I would start with like 50, go up to 100, go up to 20, and then try to max it out, or...
Well, no. So once I'm saying from like the get-go. Like, so let's take someone who is moderately conditioned. They've been in a gym. They've been working out for 6 months, right? Let's say they've been working out for 6 months. They know what they're doing. They are mediocre in their lifting or their exercise routine, and they're like, hey, I actually want to learn more about this. I want to use this as a metric or a benchmark to test my skill and my raw power and strength. Okay. How am I going to go about doing this? So if that's the case, right, you're going to do a slight warm-up. So let's say we're testing your 1 repetition max to measure your upper body muscular strength in the form of your chest, right? You're going to go to the bench press. You're going to do a warm-up with just the bar. You're going to do your dynamic stretching, not static stretching. You're going to get everything loose, ready to go.
Why do I want to
do... your breathing's good.
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but why do I want to do dynamic stretching instead of static? What's going to be the difference for me?
So the difference is, Scott, that if people for a long time, earlier in the 70s and the 80s, they thought static stretching was the way to go. When research and studies show that static stretching can be a little bit problematic if you're just starting a workout and you do that, because what static stretching is going to do is it's going to create muscle tears, I want to say is the correct term here, and it's just not something you're going to want to do pre-workout. Okay. However, there is a place for it, right? If you want to, after your workout, if it tickles your fancy, go out and do your static stretching, right? Stretch out those muscle groups, if you know what you're doing, right? But it's not something you're going to want to do. That's all right, we're getting you there. That's not something you're going to want to do pre-lift, right? So back to the 1 rep max test, right?
Right.
You get on the bench, you do your dynamic warm up, you work the muscles that are going to be involved in the lift during this warm up, right?
Okay.
Then, ideally, you're going to have a spotter, right? You should have someone else there. Even if maybe you're on a Smith machine, you should have a spotter, right? Because you're lifting a crushing amount of weight, right? This is going to be the most you can do only one time, at best. That's the best case scenario. You lift this thing once.
Right.
Now you're going to have to do a little bit of testing here, right? In the sense that you're not just going to be like, well, I know exactly, I'm going to put on 400 pounds, right? Because that's not going to happen.
Okay.
You're gonna put on what you think is towards the higher or the upper limit of what you can lift, right? So let's say you typically do a set of 8 or 10 for 130, right? Well, that's a decent amount of reps, right? Mm-hmm. So you could probably get away with putting on 160. You try that one time. It goes well. You lift it. You're like, I could actually probably lift a little bit more. You're going to slowly walk it up and increase it until you get to your 1 repetition max.
Okay.
Now, this is a dangerous game because the more energy you expel on those tester sets, the less you're going to have for your 1 rep max.
Okay.
But once you establish a baseline, so say I finished the workout, I had to do 3 tester sets and 1 repetition max set. I'm like, it's 190. 190 is the most I can lift for 1 rep on bench press, barbell. Then next time I can go into the gym with that baseline so I can eliminate some of the tester sets. I'll have more energy, and then I have that standard or benchmark to beat. You know what I'm saying?
Right. And so that makes a lot of sense. So how are we keeping track of that? Are we, just kind of jotting it down or putting a spreadsheet, something like that? Or
sure,
that's
either or.
Okay.
You're right. The having an objective, quantifiable, or quantitative number is super important when it comes to measuring this stuff, because you can't just go off of what you thought you lifted last time or maybe I got this. No, you need to write it down. You need to put it in a folder, spreadsheet, document, your phone. The notes page on your phone has been really useful for me and some of my clients in the past. You could do an app. There's plenty of fitness apps that will measure that for you, where you can input that data.
Okay.
Any way you can record that works.
Perfect. Okay, cool. So actually,
and that's about it.
Yeah, no, I'd like to kind of relate that to business, and I'm going to throw in some personal finance, because you guys, we're going to throw a lot of business stuff at you. A lot of this stuff is going to go over your head. Totally cool. Just re-listen to the podcast. We'll explain it and ask us questions. We are all about that. We want to hear from you guys. So when it comes to physical strength, the first thing I think about is saving versus investing. So a lot of people think, hey, I've got a 401k, I'm solid, I got money in the bank, which is good. It's great for most people. One thing a lot of people don't understand is that, like working out, it's not a static stretch. It's not a static exercise that you need to be doing. It's completely dynamic. So if you put your money into, let's say, a 401k or a savings account, well, basically inflation is going to eat that stuff up. Now, if you haven't listened to our first podcast, go back to our first podcast to kind of understand the idea behind this. But right now, if you put your money into a savings account, you're going to get a 0.01% or maybe more, maybe 0.02%.
And that would be gracious.
That would be freaking gracious. Some CDs I've seen, if you put it in there for 6 years, you're going to get a 0.2% return on your investment. Well, inflation, boys and girls, is about 3% on average. The goal of the Federal Reserve Bank is to hit about 2%. So if you just listen to our first podcast, you'll understand that if you're getting 0.2% and inflation is 2%, you're getting eaten alive. Your buying power is...
Because you're losing money.
You are certainly losing. You're losing buying power. But in sense, technically, yes, you are losing money, as it were, but it's really in buying power. You have the same amount of dollars, but your dollars are going to buy less. Okay?
Yeah, that's correct.
Right.
That's a good way of saying that.
So how do we measure this? how do we look at it? So you've got savings in the bank. That's awesome. Well, what you want to do is you want to look at your personal financial statement. Now, this is going to be daunting for a lot of people, but one thing I want you to do, if you haven't already, is read Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. Luke.
Ooh, there goes the shout out.
There goes the shout out right there. I got to tell you. The reason is
Great
because
book.
I was going to be a nurse at one point. Nursing is a fantastic profession, I got to tell you. My heart goes out to these guys. They're awesome. But I was sitting in the back of nursing class on the fourth semester out of 5. I came close to graduating. And a voice in my back, a voice in the back of my head said, "You don't want to do this, dude." And in the middle of class, I said, "Wow, you're right." And after that, I decided to work just to see what I wanted to do, picked up Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and learned that there was another way. You don't have to work for money the rest of your life, put your money in a 401k, and see it get eaten alive by taxes when you draw it out. And you do, in order to, when you, in life, okay? So anyway, back to the financial statement. So cash flow is going to be an extremely important way for you to kind of focus on how much money you're keeping. It's not how much money you make, it's how much money you keep. And how much money you keep is reflected on your balance sheet. So cash flow is income minus expenses. Balance sheet is going to be assets minus liabilities. Or assets minus liabilities is going to be how much money you're keeping. Okay?
And you should probably write that down.
Yeah, no, you should probably write that down, right? One ratio that I use, and I'm getting kind of complex here, but is the debt to equity ratio. I call it the DE ratio. Most people do. Is you take your assets and divide it by your liabilities. If it is below 1, then you have more assets than you have liabilities. This is what you want. You want it to be as far below 1 as humanly possible. But if you have more than 1 for that, then it's going to be essentially you're going to have more liabilities than
that's
assets.
bad.
And that is bad. It really is. But I want to kind of relate this back. So when you're pushing and you're doing your physical exercise, your dynamic exercise, and hitting your strength exercises, you're going to be tearing a bunch of muscle. Okay, a lot of people are scared of investing. They're scared of doing new things. And what you're doing when you're trying to get to your maximum is when you're pushing your weight is you want to get to failure. Luke was actually training me a while back, and he was doing a great job. And he said, "Okay, cool. Let's get you to failure, right? Let's see where you fail at." And a lot of people are scared of failing. School teaches them, whoa, don't fail. If you look at someone else's paper or you fail, then you are a horrible person. You are not going to pass, and you fail at life, which is
and it hurts.
It does. I mean, imagine going in and failing. I know everyone here has failed a test before. Maybe not. You could be, some type of prodigy and be super smart. I'm not that guy.
You probably have, though. You probably have, though.
Yeah, you probably have. I went to a hepatitis clinic the other week. Took a test. Did great. Got an A, 2 B's, and a C.
God.
Oh, man. Maybe we should cut that out.
No,
it's all right. But anyway, so back to muscle failing. So when you're pushing your weight, you want to get to failure because that's going to help your muscles grow. When your muscles tear, they build up, they start to grow. Okay? Same thing when it comes to investing. So what is investing? It's a broad topic. We're not going to go into all that now. We'll do that later on in a different podcast. But learning to make your money work for you. Again, reading Rich Dad Poor Dad is really going to help you understand this. But investing in different types of assets, could be precious metals, could be paper assets, could be real estate, could be anything, right? And failing, you're going to lose money when you're learning to do this, right? And it's scary for a lot of people, but when you invest your money and you start educating yourself on how investments work, you're going to start making more mistakes and then learning how to not make those mistakes over again. All right.
It's part of the process, you know?
It is.
I completely, so many people, I had a buddy over this weekend, real smart, intelligent guy, entrepreneur, started his own business while he works a full-time job. And we talked heavily about investing. He's like, man, I didn't know you were so into this. And like, you know, so many people talk about it, but he was talking about the risk. Like, I'm so afraid to lose all my money.
Yep.
Guess what, dude? Calculated risk is a thing. It is something you need to utilize, and failure is a part of life. If you never get in the game, you're never going to be a star. Period. Yep. You know, there is risk, but that's just that's how life works at a primal base level.
100%.
You know,
learning to invest is learning to manage risk. There is always going to be risk, but if you love the asset, you know how it works, you know how to grow your money with it, you're going to do fine. Now, one thing I would like to kind of touch on is you were talking about static stretching earlier, kind of like the thing not to
Correct.
do. Well, before you
pre-workout,
before you work
not
out.
to do pre-workout. Yes,
Correct, not do pre-workout. So, of course, you need to save money to start learning to invest. Don't get me wrong, but essentially,
Correct.
saving money is really akin to not exercising, sitting on the couch, and cramming your face full of bonbons all day, every day. All right, and, you know, I hate to say it like that, but like I said earlier, when you put your money in a bank, you're going to get a 0.2% interest rate, maybe 0.3, maybe 0.4, I don't know. But
it's pretty low.
Inflation's going to eat it up. They're, like I said, the Federal Reserve's target's about 2%. Now I think they changed it to 2.4 or whatever. But you're going to lose buying power. So learning to invest and educating yourself is going to really help you guys out. One action step, the one thing I want you guys to take away from this episode is to measure your financial strength, make your own financial statement, write down the cash flow. How much money are you keeping every month? You know, put down how much assets you have. It could be a savings account, could be precious metals, could be whatever. Add up the total and then divide that by the amount of liabilities you guys have. Could be car payment, could be mortgage, could be whatever, and get that number. Just like writing down what your max is, or how many reps you did with the
or what you did last workout. It's all important. Because if someone comes up to you, people hate to do this, but if someone comes up to you and they ask you like how much are you worth, or what's your debt to equity ratio, or blah blah, whatever it is about you, you better damn well know that. Because if you don't, what are you even doing? You know what I mean? What is solid if you don't have these numbers down? If you're not recording this, what's happening there? You don't know,
right?
Because you're not recording it.
And a majority of the people who are listening to this podcast now, you probably have a car with a loan. You more than likely have purchased a home or something like that. Well, here's some information for you sports fans. When you graduate from college, Luke, when you went to rent the apartment you're in now, or to buy your new car, all right, did they ask for your grades in school? Did they ask for your GPA?
Dude, 100%. No, of course not.
Exactly, because the banker doesn't want to know that. They want to know they want to know about your financial statement. How much money are you keeping? How much money do you have? And will you be able to repay back that loan if it defaults, if it fails? What can they get to make sure that they're going to get that money back? So
Correct.
Your financial statement is your report card out in life.
It's your life report card. That's right.
100%, man. But I hope that makes sense, you guys. That is what I had to say for this podcast.
Solid, dude. I would also like to say while you were talking, Scott, I remembered a couple things.
Sure.
Also, guys, if you want to know what the current interest rate is in the country of the United States, the current inflation rate in the country of the United States of America, you can just Google that shit. So you should be aware. You can see trends in the history of kind of how inflation has risen and fallen over time. Also, I will say, due to my own research, I have found high interest savings accounts. I'm not necessarily sponsoring that or recommending that, but that is a really good option. In fact, I found one that had a rate of 2%. Yeah. No, I do. I'm just saying, I have found if you are going to put your money in a savings account and say, because everyone should have a certain amount of cash. Let's be honest. But if you are going to have to keep money in cash, there are savings accounts you can find from reputable financial institutions that are at. I found one that I have that's. I'm not actively using it, but it's around 2%, which is phenomenal if you look at the rest of the industry.
Compared to the rest,
we're seeing, like you said, we're seeing 0.1%, or just minimal, very minimal numbers.
Yeah.
So that's what I have to say about that.
And you're going to see interest rates go down coming up most likely. One thing I want to make sure that everybody knows, we do not recommend any form of investments. We are not in that business. We're in the education business. Right. So
or exercise for that matter. I'm here to teach, not to get sued over you trying to unsuccessfully do something that I explained accurately.
Right. So get a personal trainer. One thing I recommend to everybody is, get a coach. Okay, if you're learning to invest, get a coach, and whatever investment you're learning. If you are wanting to exercise, get a personal trainer.
Which you should. Which everyone should. Let's be very clear. That is an unfathomable. That is an objective truth.
Yes.
That you cannot run away from.
Absolutely not.
You can't run away from it. But good point, Scott. I always think we should end out with that caveat there. Scott, I think you want to say something in regards to another podcast.
Oh yeah. Okay, so one thing I realized, you meet different people every day, and I actually ran into this guy named Joseph who has a podcast called Vericon Video. This is and I'm like, Luke, do you like older movies? We're talking like, the old stuff, not just Star Wars or whatnot, but we're talking, what was it, like Friday After Next, Ocean's 11, different things like that.
Yeah, there's some goldies.
Oh, 100%, man. Well, one podcast I've been listening to that's pretty good is this podcast, Vericon Video. They actually essentially watch the movies and talk about it and talk about all the crap that happens in those movies. For some reason, it's just like completely funny to me, and I thoroughly enjoy it. So if you get a chance, definitely check out Vericon Video. Definitely, you're going to laugh your ass off at it. Especially when you listen to the one on Friday. It's freaking great, man.
I'm going to do that right after this, actually.
Yeah. Right? It's super cool.
That does kind of sound like fun.
But awesome, guys. So I definitely want to end this out. I appreciate you guys stopping by. If you have any questions, definitely put it in the doobly-doo right below our YouTube. I'm a Dungeons and Dragons guy, and this guy named Matt Colville does videos, and he calls it the doobly-doo, and I freaking love it. But ask us questions. You can also get us at brainsbrawnandbs@gmail.com. Let us know what you think.
Correct.
And that's pretty much it, guys. Keep educating yourself. Keep growing. Keep stretching those muscles. Keep going.
Solid. Take care. See you next time, guys.